Okay, so now that we've made 5 pleats off to the right side of the bend, we're going to do the same for the left side of the bend. Alright, so that's the first one that we've put in already. Let's just keep adding until we get 5 equal pleats on the left side as well. Continue by pinning in place. That's 2, 3 more to go. Three. Four. And 5. Right. Okay. And there you have it. So from center point A, we've put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going this way, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going that way. So let's just turn it around, and this is what it looks like, right? So you can see the fold that's happening down the front of the bodice. Okay. Right. So that's the fold. So it's looking really nice and balanced out right here right now. So I'll just define that for you. Okay. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, about the same size here. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 there as well. Okay. So what's going to happen is you're then going to stitch this into place, and I've pinned the band and the bodice in vertically with my pins, but that's not how it's going to be sewn. What's going to happen is you are going to put in at least 1 centimeter in for seam allowance before you stitch in here from point B through point A and again to point B. Alright, so I don't know if you can see, but this is point C, and point C is where we're going to be attaching in our sleeve, and that's already been cut out. We will also give you a separate tutorial on all the measurements for the Meri blouse. We'll also have that burned onto discs or flash drives, and we will have that distributed to women who are offline and who are unable to really access this free training online. Okay, so now that the pleating's done, we can add our sleeve. Okay, so just move that aside. This generally is our sleeve for the standard Meri blouse. So this is the armband. This is where the armhole will connect to, and this is the little bit that's going to be pleated into from points B to point C on your Meri blouse band. Okay, so you can stitch in this one prior to adding this. I like to just continue on with my my pleating. and just have it all stitched in at the same time. Alrighty, so let's turn this around, right side down, and just show you the rationale of what's going to be happening here. So this is the front bodice. Now you're looking at this band and you're wondering, is this really going to fit 2 sleeves, right, and the back bodice? Answer yes. And we know that because we've marked in our center points here, right? So as long as you have your center points, like I mentioned in tutorial B or part 2, as long as you have your center points here, you should have nothing to worry about. Just make sure you're balancing out your pleats, okay? So starting from point B, we're gonna fold at point C, and the edge should really come and rest at point A, right in the center there. And the same applies to your right side. So that's perfect. Okay, so what's going to happen now is we're just going to try and make sense of the band here first before we pleat. Okay, so this sleeve, really all this excess material here is going to be pleated onto this length here, and the other side as well. Okay, so we're not going to fold that and do it because that'll be really confusing. We're going to open up the band and the sleeve, and just making sure that you're pinning the right side of the sleeve onto the right side of the Meri Blouse bodice. Okay, so it's going to be like this, placed like so, and all this excess sleeve material has to fit in from here to here. So that's what's really going to be forming the pleating. Okay, so placing now, this edge here must join to the bottom part of the armhole here, and what we're gonna do is just open this up like so, see that, and we're gonna pin. Right, there we go. Just grab myself a seat. Okay, so I'm just pinning this normally, right? No pleating going on here, and this will form the joint of your sleeve to the bodice in the front part. I don't know if you can understand that, but I'm sure there's a proper sewing term for that. So I'm just pinning all the way up here until I reach this corner here. I'm happy with my measurements because they've come out perfect, and I guess that's something that's very important, is just getting it right the first time. Okay, and that means taking proper measurements. So one thing to remember about Meri Blouses is that it's pretty free size. So what that means is that you're not doing too much measurements, measuring of your client. If you're sewing for someone, maybe the only real measurements you'll be taking would be the neckline. If your client or customer isn't really standard sized, and the armhole measurement, the bust or the hips or the waist, because it's free size in those areas of the bodice, as opposed to dresses and tops and blouses, jackets, etc. So just because it's a beginner's course, we're starting off with Meri Blouse because it's relatively easy to learn, but it is a skill. Not a lot of women have this skill or willing to share this skill. So it's super important that we have this delivered to women who need it for free, because it can be used as a tool to make business, to make profit, for women to have a safer alternative to making business other than maybe street vending and selling little nut or cigarettes, and just really putting themselves in very unhealthy situations, or very vulnerable situations, open to stuff like sexual harassment, loss of income, police brutality, etc. So that really is the vision of Sew Empower, just teaching women basic skills and just planting that seed of thought that there is an alternative way to making safer business that's more sustainable. All right. Okay, so we've got this excess here, and this, of course, will then be connected to the back side of the bodice, right? So just to get started on pleating, we're going to pin in all the way up here. I've been up since 5, and it's not because I wake